In 10th place is the Vulture, and Vulture's been a pretty cool character in comics. If I'm being honest, what really makes me really enjoy the Vulture are his scenes in Morbius, and I know that he's not in the movie for very long, but it's Michael Keaton who I absolutely love, and I love uh, what Vulture gets to do in that film. I actually really, really enjoy it, even if I wish it was longer. Would definitely love to see more interactions between Vulture and Morbius. Speaking of Morbius, in ninth place is Morbius, and he's on my list because I actually do really enjoy the Morbius film. I think that it's a stylish, exciting movie, and I do really like the character of Morbius. In eighth place is the Lizard, a pretty underrated Spider Man villain who is really cool. I think that he's pretty consistently interesting and sympathetic, and I think he's a character that really works. In seventh place is Kingpin, a consistently interesting character that tends to make stories that he's in more interesting. In sixth place is William Stryker because he's an amazing villain in X2 X Men United, and there are a lot of good characters in that film, and he's certainly one of the most interesting characters in that film. And the interactions between him, Magneto, and Professor X are really fascinating and really make it one of the most interesting, emotionally compelling Marvel films that there's ever been, in my opinion. In fifth place is Bolivar Trask because of what a huge fan I am of X Men Days of Future Past, and I think that Bolivar Trask is such a interesting villain, and I love that all three of the main villains, they have their reasons for doing what they are, and Bolivar Trask is the one that feels the closest to being a unsympathetic villain, but there's still a lot of fascinating layers to him, and I really think that he adds so much to an already amazing film that means so much to me and is one of the most emotionally moving films that there's been in terms of films that are based off of comics. In fourth place is Doctor Doom. He's such a cool character, and I grew up not being a big Fantastic Four fan, but I watched a lot of Fantastic Four stuff because I loved Doctor Doom that much. And I would get excited watching Fantastic Four films, cartoons, and playing with the toys because I loved Doctor Doom. And I did like the Thing, and I thought the Human Torch was kind of fun, but overall, I wasn't really a huge Fantastic Four fan. But Doctor Doom, he really made me love watching Fantastic Four stuff. He's just that cool. In third place is Doctor Octopus. Uh, Consistently great villain. One of the best characters in the Spider-Man franchise. Absolutely love Alfred Molina as Doctor Octopus. Just one of the most fun villains. I love the stuff involving the tentacles, and it leads to some of the best fight scenes that there's ever been in Spider-Man adaptations. And Doctor Octopus can be a very ambitious, brilliant, and tragic villain while also being a ton of fun to watch. Love Dr. Octopus. In second place is Mystique, one of the most consistently cool and compelling characters in the X-Men franchise that adds so much to it. And a lot of what I love about X-Men Days of Future Past comes from her, and focusing on what an interesting multi-layered character she is, and she is a character that could be considered a hero or a villain. Because of her being a villain in a lot of early stuff, I put her on the villain list, and I think it would have been too complicated to put her on both lists. But I do love Mystique as a hero, but in terms of being a villain, she's easily one of the coolest Marvel villains of all time. and it's very much right up there with my number one, who is Magneto. The ongoing debates between Professor X and Magneto and their different ways of going about things are endlessly fascinating and some of the most interesting stuff from any Marvel franchise. I think that Magneto is a villain that is incredibly tragic and sympathetic, but is still very much a character that's going about things wrong. And I'm very much on Professor X's side about his way of going about things, of wanting people to be peaceful and to get along. I think that's the way to go about things. So Magneto is a villain where I'm against what he's doing, but I definitely understand where he's coming from. He makes a lot of great arguments, but he's still a villain and needs to be stopped. So I think that Magneto is a endlessly fascinating villain, and also his, in addition to how compelling he is, his powers are so cool and lead to some of the most interesting action sequences, and he has an incredible design. I love the helmet, I love his costume, so Magneto's my favorite. Mystique is certainly up there. That was a bit hard to decide though. And you could let me know who your favorite Marvel villains are and what you think of my list.